Welcome to Elevate Your Event, your favorite podcast for transforming fundraising events. Join us weekly for expert tips and creative ideas to make your next event a standout success.
In this episode of Elevate Your Event, Elise Neugebauer, our client success manager at Handbid, shared insights on leveraging new technology trends to enhance fundraising endeavors in a recent NXUnite panel discussion. Stay tuned for more tips to empower your nonprofit's mission through innovative fundraising strategies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's panel. My name is Hannah Thompson, and I will be moderating today. Our panel topic is building out technology for established nonprofits, and really excited to dive into this topic with our expert panelists who are here today. Also, just really appreciate everybody coming to today's panel and appreciate the work that y'all do. And without further ado, I will start our introductions. So we have Elise Neugebauer, who's the client service manager at Handbid.
Hi.
Over the past 6 years, Elise has worked as an on-site expert at over 300 fundraising events. She has also organized and managed 15 events for her kids' school and other organizations in which she's involved. Frank D. Kret is the CEO and co-founder at Zeffy.
Hi.
And Zeffy is the only free fundraising platform for nonprofits. Zeffy is helping 15,000 nonprofits have more impact in 4 years after the initial launch of the project. We also have Michelle Paul, who is the VP of Growth Strategy at Back Office Thinking.
Hi, everyone.
Michelle has devoted her career to nonprofit technology strategy since 2005, helping organizations overcome operational challenges, increase impact, and cultivate stronger constituent relationships. And then last but not least, Sam Briggs, who is the Director of Sales at CallHub.
Hey.
Sam is a political tech sales leader helping Democratic and progressive campaigns and organizations make calls and send text messages to save the world. So really excited to have everybody here with us. And without further ado, we'll dive into our first question. And this is, Elise, I'll start with you. How can established nonprofits use technology to maximize their impact in today's fast evolving digital landscape?
Well, I think there's so many ways. I mean, we're such a tech world now, and it seems like every day there's more software, more technology, more AI popping up. And so I think kind of the sky's the limit. Figure out what direction you want to go. And I guarantee you there's probably something out there for you. And I think that, just, do your research. It seems like personally, we have some competitors as well. And so find the best fit for you. That there's so much out there, and there's the perfect fit for technology with any nonprofit.
Awesome. Thanks, Elise. Sam, would love to hear from you. How can established nonprofits use technology to maximize their impact in our ever-changing digital landscape today?
I will say, these people very good at raising money and things. I'll talk about more about the nitty gritties of the calls and texts and stuff. So, I mean, on my side, I'll mention this a lot here. I think, omnichannel, multi-channel communications, like not getting stuck to one thing, like email was good until it wasn't. Text messaging was amazing until it isn't. Robocalls were great for a while. Like things have their moment and move on, but that doesn't mean they don't still exist. You still can't text a cell phone. So you still need robocalls. You still need emails. They still need all these things. So you need to be able to expand your tool set instead of restricting down to one thing. And so really thinking to the future, like WhatsApp, RTS, like what's the next thing coming around, and being prepared for that as well. And then, automation. I mean, echoing what Elise said, like anything, there's so many, you do something you hate. I bet you I could find a way to use an AI or something to do that for you at this point. And like, I have written so much SQL over the last year. I don't know any SQL. I just go to the AIs and ask it to write me SQL, and it works, and it has been amazing and saved money and been able to do amazing things. So, lean in.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Michelle, how can established nonprofits use technology to maximize impact in today's fast evolving digital landscape?
I think to kind of tag on to what Elise and Sam also just said, there are tools for so many different things. I love that idea of, hey, if there's something you hate doing, there's probably a tool that can help you not do it. But I also think for my perspective on this is that for most nonprofits or for most people in your day-to-day job at a nonprofit, to some degree, your technology should end up becoming invisible to you, right? If you're spending all of your time thinking about your technology or focusing on your technology, that is an indication that maybe there's something getting in the way with it, as opposed to it just being the tool that helps you get things done.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to kind of let that fade into the background and get focused on your actual mission.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay. And then Frank, as you're thinking about today's digital landscape, what are your recommendations for established nonprofits using technology to maximize impact?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, dear panelists, before. What I would add, I think, is how to choose the area, because there's technology for everything. You can spend all your days picking new technology, evaluating, but really thinking on what you hate doing is great. What you spend time on is great, but also really taking a step back and looking at impact for your organization. Because sometimes it can be, and really depending for each nonprofit, it can be as simple as I receive a lot of donations. The conversion rate for my donation form is not high. If I implement high converting form, I can as much as double my overall donations. And I think it works for everything you do. If you spend a lot of time writing grants, generative AI would be for you. So really taking a step back and looking where is the impact. And this way it allows not to get sidetracked on technology for side tasks, I would say.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate those kind of answers to start us off, everyone. So as we look at our second question, Sam, I'll ask you to take this one first. So what are some best practices for selecting tech solutions? How can nonprofits align their technology investments with their missions and goals?
Well, I say start with your data people, because if they don't like it, it doesn't matter what you're using if data doesn't approve, because data rolls over everything. But do that in security. I mean, like, yes, features, but also security concerns, like know where your security, stands and what your requirements are, and start from there, because you might love something and then it's not SOC 2 or it's not ISO or it's not whatever you need to have and you can't use it. So make sure I usually start from there. And then, just nitty gritties, because that's where I'm at. Pricing structure. Like, are you cyclical? Do you do a lot of your work in 2 months in the fall? Well, then maybe monthly pricing isn't great. Are you continual work over time? Well, then maybe that would be great for you. And so, there are lots of, just like there's lots of different technologies, different ways to pay for it. And so finding the way that you do your work.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Elise, would love to hear your thoughts here on best practices for selecting tech solutions and how nonprofits can align technology investments with their mission and goals.
Well, I 100% agree with Frank and Sam, and they hit some of my things that I have on my list, but definitely word of mouth. I feel like the nonprofit world is pretty tight knit. And so talk with your colleagues, talk with other people who maybe have the same mission, similar missions. What are they using? What are they finding effective? And I'm not knocking free. I know Frank is on here and I love free as well, but I also think free isn't always better. I've definitely run into some software that, is free and then it's not. So do your research, and yeah, I think that's great what you said, Frank. Share that with your donors and say, this is why we want to invest in this. This is what it's going to bring back to our org. And move from there. And then just lastly, like longevity, are they a new, software? Are they tried and true? Have they been supporting missions like yours for a while? Or are you gonna take a leap off a cliff and maybe find the next best thing? So, there's a lot to think about and just do your research.
Thanks, Elise. Okay, Michelle, would love to hear from you the best practices you're thinking about for selecting tech solutions and then aligning those investments with your nonprofit's mission and goals.
Yeah. This is a thing that I could probably talk about for 4 hours, and I'm not going to right now. But basically, this is a lot of what I do with my work as a technology consultant for nonprofits. My biggest piece of advice that a lot of other things end up boiling down to is to solve the right problem, which usually the reason that folks are making a tech change is because there's a problem you want to solve or a step forward that you want to take. First of all, if you can't point to one of those things, then maybe don't be making the change that you're trying to make or don't adopt the thing that you want to adopt. But really doing the work up front to figure out what the problem really is. One of the examples that comes up a lot, with a lot of my work is the idea of system integration, right? Obviously, we know that in order to be building relationships with our constituents, we want to actually have data in one place. We want that 360 view. We want to kind of know everything about people, right? But people then, I see a lot of organizations get really hung up on the extremely idealistic vision of all of our systems. We are here right now in a situation where everything is manual and nothing talks to each other. We have to make everything all be in one system and everything talks to each other. And there's actually sometimes in between those things, right? Just being able to take a step forward of, right now is your manual integration somebody literally typing words into a database from another. Maybe there's an upload of a bunch of data at once that would actually be a huge step forward for your organization and your ability to kind of be efficient and get things done. That isn't, we're going to invest thousands of dollars in some kind of custom integration bridge between these systems or switching systems to one that will actually talk to each other, right? So being clearer about the idea of, our systems don't talk to each other is not a problem in itself. Like, what's the actual impact behind that? What's the actual thing that is causing as an issue in your life? And then you can get a little more specific about what problem you're going to solve there.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to dive in with a question for Frank. How can nonprofits utilize technology to improve donor engagement and retention, ensuring long-term sustainability?
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's an important question for a lot of nonprofits. So I try to think about it in advance. And I think here it's really about saving time and being able to do the work, because there's millions of best practice. We know there is this RFR framework like recency, frequency, money per donor. But in practice, the key, it's not rocket science, but it's being able to find the time to actually do it regularly, every week, every month. So the key here in picking the technology, I think, would be how simple it is, or if you have more advanced needs, making sure you have the staff and the team to handle this complexity and those advanced features. So really here, simplicity would be the key, I think.
Thanks, Frank. Michelle, would you, I'd love to hear from you on this one. How can nonprofits utilize technology to improve donor engagement and retention, ensuring long-term sustainability?
Yeah, I really loved Frank's answer there. And I'm going to plagiarize myself a little bit, because I think one of my answers from before actually worked pretty well here too, which is, in an ideal world, for most people at a nonprofit, your actual use of technology should blend into the background for you. It should become kind of invisible, because it should be the thing that is supporting you in the job that you're doing, in executing those best practices, in following all those things that you know you should be doing, rather than having to fight with your technology about it, or having to really pay a lot of attention in learning how to know, like learning details of systems so that you can use the technology to improve donor engagement, right? But relying on tech as the kind of foundation of the work that you're doing, having something that just works, right? And that actually eliminates obstacles rather than making things more difficult for folks. I think that's the main thing to keep in mind.
Thanks, Michelle. Sam, how can nonprofits utilize technology to focus on improving donor engagement and retention to get to those goals of long-term sustainability?
So continue with my trend. I'm going to go very deep or very specific on this one. So, I said before, like multi-channel communications, like making sure you don't burn a list, just sending more and more of the same thing to people who don't respond there. being able to use things like using text messages to re-engage people who've unsubscribed from email lists. Like you can't email them, you can text them. Maybe they emailed for a different reason, et cetera there. And so just being able to make these channels work together, but also so you don't burn your lists. Like some people would not appreciate, 15 text messages. And so maybe try a diff something else after 4 or 5. And just, meeting people where they're at. Like you want them, meet them. They are real people. They're not just numbers, and they have their own communication preferences that you should try to follow if you can. And then other thing I'll say is deliverability of just like making sure you actually get through. Like maybe your stats aren't as bad. Maybe people just aren't getting your calls and texts. And I think like spam labeling, right? So you see spam labels and calls, it messes up your contact rate. It also, a lot of these apps, like Umail, which is one of the biggest ones here in the US, sends a fake out of service message to remove you from the spammers list, which means that if we're calling people on labeled numbers, some of the disconnects you're getting back are good numbers, right? So you're literally chopping off your own members on good numbers that could be contactable, that you would never contact them again because now it looks like a disconnected number in your system. And then maybe you pay good money later on to append that number when you had a good number to start with. So it's, multiplier effects of these things going down the list. So, making sure deliverability is good. You're not getting labeled and stuff there to make sure you're actually engaging with the people you want to engage with, and then thinking about how you're engaging with them so you don't burn them and you actually hit them up where they want to contact you.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, Elise, continuing on with this focus on donor engagement and retention, how would you recommend nonprofits utilize technology for long-term sustainability?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I know that both Sam and Michelle touched on this in past questions, so maybe not everyone heard, but your data is so important. And, you want either software technology where you can collect the data, grow the data, and have accurate data. And so that's going to help you make more money in the future, which is what all nonprofits want. So, utilize whatever software you're using, whatever technology you're using to do that. And then the other thing is, we all want to be fun and different and engage our donors. And so find something unique, find something that's going to set you apart from other nonprofits. And, if it's a little fun and crazy, maybe that's not the worst thing. So I think that there's definitely some stuff out there that makes you fun and unique, but will continue to grow your donor base.
Thanks, Elise. I will turn this next question to Michelle. So, Michelle, do you have any tips for managing resistance from stakeholders during the exploration or implementation of new technology?
Absolutely. I was once in a meeting with a client. So, back up, I was thinking, does technology consulting for nonprofits. So we do implementing systems and design and integration, but we also just do kind of strategy assessments and help nonprofit organizations figure out what systems they should be using. So I was leading discovery on a project. And so I had a whole bunch of stakeholders from the organization in a room. And we were going around. I can't remember exactly the topic that we were talking about, but it was something, basically about like, hey, what are your biggest pain points right now? What are you really hoping for with a big system? And one person in the meeting begins her presentation, begins her little speech to the group with, as someone who is afraid of change, I want you to know that I'm coming into this, like, I'm feeling very hesitant about this. I almost fell out of my chair because that is a really extraordinarily self-aware thing to say. Most people are not able to self-identify as being someone who's afraid of change. I don't think that she actually was either in the end. But when you say resistance, that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? It comes up as looking like people being afraid of change a lot of the time. And I actually think that is one of the biggest traps that you can fall into, because there's a difference between resistance that's coming from staff who, are self-identifying as not as being afraid of change, versus people who are raising, in some cases, really valid objections or really valid to them objections, right? So being able to pick apart what the actual resistance is so huge. It is not a monolith. It does not only take one form. There's the person who is pointing out maybe something about the way that they do their job that nobody knows, right? If you're the only person in their role and they've been using a system to do that job, if someone else from the organization is the one making this proclamation about change, they might not know that detail about like, actually everything hinges on this one feature being really important, right? And so sometimes those objections are valid. Other times the objections are valid in their own way because not everyone in the organization can see the big picture, right? And so painting the picture of why are we making this change? Why are we adopting this new technology? What is the like high level strategy that we are trying to enact here? And therefore, yes, your job might change, or therefore, yes, you might need to do this thing differently, and really kind of helping people understand that. So just differentiating between where is this resistance coming from? What form is this actually taking? That's the most important thing about this idea of getting a whole team on board for adoption.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. That's a really powerful story to go along with that as we're discussing this question, which Elise, I'll pose to you next. What you would recommend for how to manage resistance from folks as nonprofits are exploring or implementing new technology?
Well, I'm coming from a little auction mobile bidding software background and also other fundraising. And one of our proven benefits of mobile bidding is that it increases your revenue by 30% plus. So, it's tried and true, and I've seen it myself. My kids, back in elementary school, we were on paper bidding, and the next year we just exceeded our goal by so much. And I really think it was because of the software. People are willing to adapt and adopt. And, so when you're trying to sell this to your stakeholders, be prepared, to share some of the data. And then the other thing is, we are all on technology all day, every day, whether it's for our job, it's social media, it's, entertainment apps, Netflix, things like that, or even just playing a game on your phone. And so I think make a comparison to that. If you can say, hey, how many times a day do you look at Instagram or if, Facebook or whatever you choose to look at? And imagine if you can turn that into what your donors are going to do. I think just that's very powerful as well.
Thanks, Elise. Frank, I'll send this one to you next as well. So, would love to hear your tips for managing resistance from stakeholders during the exploration or implementation of new technology.
Yeah, and I think I'd love to share a real life example at Zephy from our head of talent, because we decided to implement an ATS, application tracking system. Is like a CRM for recruiting, because we're recruiting a lot in the next years. And she did two things really well. She managed to get the people who would be using it later on board early, and she managed to get them agreed to test it. And I think those two things are really key. So first thing, she had all the 6 hiring managers at Zephy in a room, sharing their concerns, their needs, what they like in the way we're doing things, their roadblocks, etc. And the second thing, once we decided on the tool, it's a greenhouse, by the way, if you have a lot of recruitment to do. She agreed people to commit to test it, because it's easy to be opposed to something in theory. You can find things you used to do a way that doesn't necessarily work the same way. But by agreeing people to do a full recruitment cycle on this software, it was really easier, because it's easier to commit for a short period of time, and it shows the value to everybody. This was really textbook change management, and I really recommend this to the nonprofits evaluating Zephy to do a full fundraiser with Zephy and see the result, prevent change fear.
Thanks, Frank. Sam, you've got the last word on this question. What your tips for managing resistance from stakeholders throughout this new tech implementation process and exploration process?
I'll again get to real specific. I'm big in the sales. I do a lot of sales, and I use a personality AI. So like Humantic.ai is one of them, but there's other out there. basically put in somebody's like LinkedIn profile, writing samples, etc., and it'll give you like disc profiles back. Because some people like bullet points, some people like stories, some people want use cases, some people want GIFs, some people want you to be friendly and talk about like, hey buddy, I got this thing for you, and others want the, here's a serious proposal for you. And it's all types. Even within, you may think your, steering committee and the people on your board and stuff. But do you also know how they present themselves here? And that may not actually be what it is. So, do a little research into them, make a plan to approach people in the way that they should be approached, the way they'll be better approached. One size does not fit all if you want to get it through and treat people, especially on, whatever the steering committee, buying committee eventually is, like as the individuals they are, right? And try to get them in the way that's going to bring them on.
Can I add one more thing, actually? So not letting Sam have the last word, I guess. Just bouncing off what Elise was saying and then kind of what was throughout this. The idea that everyone is using tech all of the time for all of the things, right? Everyone is using tech all of the time for all of the things. And I still have to have conversations with our clients who have there's an imaginary 65-year-old that lives in their head that is somebody who has never touched a computer before. And it's really kind of wild because I think it's just a matter of perspective, and it's just a matter of like people not thinking about the linear nature of time. I used to in my former job, in my former life, we worked with lots of arts and culture nonprofits. And we did a survey every single year that we called the Online Arts Patron Survey, where we basically just surveyed people about their email habits and their online habits and all this other stuff. And it was incredible because this was 10 years ago now. We had been doing the survey for 10 years. And what we had found at that time is that the behavior of people in that survey who were 75 years old in 2014 exactly mimicked the behavior of the people who were like 35 years old in 2005. So think about this, right? Mm. So first of all, someone who is 35 in 2005 is 55 years old now. First of all. And second of all of those people, right? Everyone, technology gets easier. Phones are in our hands all the time. There's lots of it becomes this native thing in the world. And so, I'm working with, Back Office Thinking does a lot of work with land trust and land conservation organizations. They've got a lot of volunteers in the fields monitoring their properties and stuff. Yes, they can do it on their phone. I understand, it's not a generational thing. There are people in this world who, to Sam's point, right? People respond to different things. People do want to experience things in different ways. There are people who really love pen and paper for doing stuff, but don't get trapped in thinking that it's a generational thing because that is not necessarily the case.
Absolutely.
Thanks for that, Michelle. Frank, we'll start with you. What mistakes or challenges have you seen established nonprofits make when it comes to tech adoption, and how can these be avoided?
Really happy to start with this one because it's one I especially like, and I've seen a lot of mistakes. And it really circle back to the start, which is people focus a lot on features and bells and whistles that they often don't actually end up using. And they forget ease of use, quality of support, and pricing. And they don't actually forget pricing, but they forget the hidden fees. And what we see at Zephy is some nonprofits sometimes choose a competitor from Zephy at first, saying, no, it's free too. And then they come back that, okay, there were hidden fees. And so that's, I think, really important to go in depth in pricing, ease of use, and support. And the good thing, people don't do it because it sounds more difficult. Evaluating ease of use in a demo is super difficult. But the good thing is you have tools like G2 and Captera, who are really specialized in evaluating software on specific criteria. So you can actually see what platform is ranking high on ease of use, support, feature, pricing, etc. And this is a great way to avoid mistakes, I think. I'll share the link.
Thanks, Frank. Michelle, turning to you, what mistakes or challenges have you seen established nonprofits make when it comes to tech adoption, and how can these be avoided?
I cannot agree more with what you just said, Frank. the way that the specific way that I see this problem come up, your point about it is difficult to evaluate ease of use in a demo. Arguably, it is impossible to evaluate ease of use in a demo. One of the biggest red flags that I see is when organizations treat demos or multiple demos in a sales process like they are training sessions. So I can spot that right away at this point, right? If you're digging into okay, but literally how? I need to see exactly every single process and I need to see exactly how this will work. And I really need to believe it. I need to see that ease of use. That's just not reality. That's not what happens. You learn systems. You get trained later. You learn things by using them, right? And so expecting that first thing to be the moment where like, I can tell this is easy to use. I can use it already. For certain kinds of systems, that's not feasible, right? And so relying on reviews and references and actually being able to focus more about results than about process is the biggest thing that I recommend people keep in mind when they're kind of evaluate a system from that perspective.
Thanks, Michelle. Sam, as you're thinking about this, what common mistakes or challenges have you seen established nonprofits make for tech adoption, and how can those be avoided?
I'm a fan. That's good. I've seen both ends, and I don't know if one of you talked about this, so apologies if I'm duplicating. I got kicked for like a second. But either jumping on every new thing, right? Just like every shiny object coming down the line. I was just like, this is cool. I mean, AI was AI for everything. Some of it's just useless, these days. But also the opposite side. Like I talk to people who have been in the same tool for 15 years and they're like, oh, we know it works. It's like, but you are leaving so much on the table because there has been things that have changed in those times, or they think they want things very specific. And so when it comes time to change, it is like, wow, it is a quite the thing to turn because they have never even evaluated other stuff. They've just been like, yep, it works. I'm stuck here. And so like, at least on a, multi-year cadence, put in there to like check new things and get stuck there. And then just lastly, if you're a large organization, like not having enough time to actually do onboarding, like the training, like what Michelle said, the trainings will be multiple and many, and you want people to look over things after you do your first week. And then you want to come through and do all that. And like most places should, have like established CS that does this. But if not, it's still something you're going to have to do. And so just being prepared to like, this won't be you might get something out tomorrow if you have to, but it's going to take some time and just being prepared for that in your, don't come pick the tool the day before you need to launch the program.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, Elise, when we're thinking about this new tech adoption for established nonprofits, what are the challenges that you've seen and how can we avoid those?
First of all, I just have to say, as I'm sitting here listening to everyone and going last, I'm just thinking we must all work in technology because I think you are all so right. And I have a whole list of these things. I think we could all just do a panel on this, but, really the biggest thing that everyone has brought up is, there's going to be a learning curve. You cannot put on an event tomorrow and start some kind of software today. Plan for that and plan for the training you need. And also look at the support. I love G2 and I love that Frank put that up there because you can look up Handbid on G2. And note that our support team, which I'm on, it's very strong. So, I think that just go into it thinking that you need some time to learn. And if you put in the time in the beginning, it will come, you'll be successful. So that's my biggest thing. And then just, in the demo, dig into the details because there are a lot of bells and whistles. And like Frank said, you don't need all of them probably, but make sure you're looking at a software that does have what you need.
Thanks, Elise. Okay. Well, with that, we've kind of finished our first round, of questions and we'll dive into questions from our audience. So, keep sending those in. We'll start with this.
With you, Frank.
Yeah. do you mind if I add up just the thing that I thought about is also the things you don't need are super important. And I think asking your peers is also a great way to avoid those mistakes.
I would just say clarification. Of course, my platform's super easy. You can get going in like 5 minutes. You know, just you want to do something, you'll be so expert tomorrow. Expert training. You know, but for the other platforms. You know.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I think I'll start with one of our audience questions, and Sam, I'll send this to you. We had a question: are online email deliverability tests accurate in your opinion? And we've used mailtester.com and it said we were fine, but I don't know if that's a true test of our spamminess. I
would push that on to some of these fine folks, because I do calls and texts and some transactional email, but I'm not blasting like I'm sure the rest of these people are. My inbox says that the fundraising is going to have a much better insight into email.
Oh, thanks, Sam. Does anyone want to take this?
I used to know a lot about this, and I am definitely not up on the actual. If you ask me this question about like 2008, and I've got you. But I don't think I'm up on the current state of the world when it comes to email deliverability.
Same here. I used to use Neverbounce to check deliverability, but it was a while ago when we were doing more mass emailing, and now we don't do it anymore. So I'm not sure I have the greatest tips on this.
And I also don't know a lot because the majority of our donors, they opt into getting information from our software. So, most of the time they get our emails. Well, thanks everyone for kind of, providing a little bit of insight there. Adam, sorry that we weren't able to tackle this question head on. I think Adam was the one who said this in the chat, but, we'll follow up and see if there are any other resources that we can send your way for that one, because I think that's a really interesting question. I think one thing that we've kind of hit on here, and Sam, you mentioned in the last question, about, like sometimes people see all the new trends and like try to dive in and like immediately and adopt everything. And I think that can be a little bit like whiplash kind of going everywhere. But what's a good like balance and approach for nonprofit professionals to like make sure that they're up on the trends, and in evaluating those and make sure that they know what's happening, in technology. So if anyone has any recommendations, for staying in the loop with tech trends without necessarily being pulled in any direction, immediately, Sam.
Well, of course it'd be doing Nexus marketing, webinars, you know, the way to do it, right? That's it. But I mean, I think it was Frank earlier said it somewhere, like, you know, take a form and you can make a better form and get double the donations. Like, wouldn't you want to make a better form? And I think it's there of like, you know, yes, there are, have a point to what you're doing was my point. If you think my point.
Thanks, Sam. Anybody else want to jump in on this one?
I have less of a directly tactical answer, but the main thing that I was thinking about regarding this question is like technology is business strategy at this point. And if at your organization, if you know, this is an executive level thing, people have to care about this. Your technology strategy as an organization can't just live with your like IT department, because it touches everything. And so really working this in to get other folks involved and listen to people and really look for those places where things could be optimized or changed. I think it's less important for nonprofits to stay ahead of the curve, again, with like the kind of hottest, newest, buzzwordiest thing, because in my experience, most of the nonprofits that we work with are still somewhere kind of behind the last curve, right? And so trying to really focus on what's going to make a difference in your organization to catch up with the curve is the most important aspect.
Awesome. And I want to make sure there was another question that came in the chat, but Frank or Elise, if you guys want to jump in on this one in your answers to Claudia's question, which is, what is the best way to find out which AI system works best with which fundraising software or with fundraising software? And Elise, would you start us off on this one?
Well, I don't exactly know, so I was looking forward to hearing some of the other answers. I do know that we utilize certain AI at certain times, but honestly, I don't use it a lot on my side of things. So if anyone has any great ideas, I would love to learn about them.
Frank, I see you answer here.
Yeah, maybe. So just to be sure, you said, so what AI integrates best? Which AI works best in fundraising software? And I think to answer well, you really have to think about the use cases because there are so many. So there's writing content, and here it's don't necessarily need integration. You can just use ChatGPT, etc., and copy paste it. An integration might save you a bit of time. Same with pictures, generating videos, etc. It's okay not to be integrated. And then think of the use cases that are a bit more complex. Some AI helps you target the right donors at the right moment, and then it has to be integrated because for you it would be, except if you have a full data science team, it would be too complicated. So it really depends on the use case, and probably asking the questions, it connects to the CRM part. And here, if I can connect to what Michelle said, the key is having the data at a place and where it speaks to your other sources of data. So it's not more which AI technology fits, but maybe looking at which one is already integrated into your use case. If not, it will be a nightmare to use it. So I don't know if that gives a good overview. Michelle,
yeah, I think that's super helpful, Frank. Thanks. Sam or Michelle, either of you want to jump in with this one too?
Yeah, I think just to say really clearly that the term AI is being used for 100,000 bazillion things right now because it's the term of the moment, right? And so literally everything is AI now. And so digging through that to know what you actually mean, right? The examples that Frank gave of there's the AI for generative, actually creating text versus there's just kind of the analytics engines, right? So those are wildly different things. And so the answer is going to be different depending on what you're looking to do.
Thanks, Michelle.
Use cases. We have an AI that does sentiment for calls. And so if you have outbound calls, do you have trolls? Do people need training? That's a totally different system than something that would write an email or send it out. And so, it's really what is the thing that you need the most help with, and being able to, go on that side. But yeah, for most stuff, you don't necessarily need integration. If you're just doing content writing or even summarization or something there, and the amount of time you'd save is worth cutting and pasting it in and out. And the amount of time it takes to set up an integration is probably not worth it because they're going to change their APIs next week anyways, because these companies are quick with those API changes. So even integration is not going to be around for who knows.
Thanks, Sam. Well, appreciate everybody sending in these questions. If you've got any more questions for our panelists, we are going to be dropping a survey in the chat where you can send those in, and we will make sure that you can get those to the panelists and get an answer. And I'll share your interest with the panelists after the session. I think we're going to do one kind of final rapid fire question before we wrap up, and really appreciate everybody being here today. And our final question that I will start with you, Elise, is what emerging tech trends or innovations are you excited about, and do you think will make the most impact over the next 5 years, and how nonprofits can stay ahead of the curve?
I think that's hard because I feel like everything is changing just so quickly. And as a nonprofit software, we are always doing our best to stay ahead of the curve and be, on the forefront in our field. But I think just continuing to see where everything's going. And, I think we're going back to AI, we're going to see a lot more of that. Actually, my husband said something to me the other day about having jobs eventually replaced by people, but then knowing that on the service team, there's that area where it won't be replaced for everything. So, I think just to have people who are wanting to move ahead and looking at what's next all the time and being, open to change and growth. And even though it is a little scary, that it's okay to move into the future.
Thanks, Elise. Michelle?
5 years is a long time. So I hesitate to, again, I kind of come back to what I said before. I sort of hesitate to answer this question in a predictive way because I think there is so much to still catch up on. And to just kind of, and catch up on and believe that people are ready to be caught up on, right? The combination of, pay attention to what's going on in the world, see what other organizations or companies that you like are doing and figure out, okay, is there an element of that would make sense for us to adopt? And not to be afraid of change, basically.
Thanks, Michelle. Frank?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. And I think the two things that will continue that happened already in the last 5 years is digitalizations and need for more transparency. Well, digitalizations, obviously, but need for transparency coming with this pressure from donors. They really want to know what you're doing with their money, how the impact is measured. And I think this is, if I was working in a nonprofit, the one thing I would focus on, making sure your community, your donors, they understand really, really well how you're leveraging their money for more impact. And that's really why we started Zephy, so that $100 given is $100 for impact. And we've seen impressive result, not only in fundraising, but in communication. Those nonprofits who can say, look, really, we're using a minimal amount. We're still using it and wisely and investing it, but minimal, so that at the end, you have the more impact possible with your money. And a lot of things will happen, AI, etc., video, with TikTok coming up. This won't change. Transparency and really demonstrating super clearly the impact would be key, I think.
Thanks, Frank. Sam?
I'll say it one more time. Not being locked down to one channel, SMS, 10DLC regulations. Who knows what T-Mobile will end up doing? And I wouldn't put $50 one way or another. But also like if you're working in immigrant communities, maybe do more WhatsApp. If you're working in European communities, more Telegram. I mean, there are different places to go. And so like knowing your audience and being prepared to reach out to them in alternate ways. If you're deep in SMS or deep in email, as we see, Google can make a change and upend everyone's emails programs and having to make changes, so not being super wedded to a single channel or a single provider and being able to be nimble and also go exactly where your audience is and not expecting that one channel to be perfect for every audience.
I actually do have something then, because one of the things that I think we are seeing related to what Sam was just saying is, what is the role of social media in the world and as a tool for nonprofits to engage with folks? It's, it's really different than that was 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago. And I think a lot of what we're seeing actually is, the kind of platform that this is being run right now, Circle, right? These kind of more like walled garden-ish, like more cultivated, curated community experiences rather than just like, it's Facebook, it's everything, everybody come on into Twitter or whatever. That's probably the trend that I am most interested in this regard right now is the discords of the world and the circles of the world and that kind of way of building a community and engaging with folks that way rather than what social media has now become like mass market, the way that mass market used to be, right? So I think that's an interesting element.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. Well, thanks everybody. We've reached the end of our panel. I just want to say thank you to Frank and Michelle and Sam and Elise for coming and sharing their expertise also under some technology difficulties. So thanks everybody for hanging with us. Appreciate everybody coming to the panel. We've got more panels coming up over the next few months, so be sure to check those out on the community platform that Michelle was just mentioning. And looking forward to seeing everybody there. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Elevate Your Event. A special thank you to NXUnite and Nexus for having us join them on their panel. If you enjoyed our show, please take a moment to leave us a review. You can find us on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Don't forget to subscribe for more great content. And if you're a fan of video, check us out on YouTube. Until next time, happy fundraising.